to the entertainer talking sports.
What is going on, football fans? Back at it with another New York Giants video as some pretty big news has dropped at a position of need for the New York Giants. And I want to thank some of the members of my Discord for telling me about the news. I was about ready to get to work, and I'm filming this video right as I'm out the door. But I wanted to let you guys know that Darius Slay, as you know, was reported on Twitter. I didn't make a video on it, but there was a conversation between Darius Slay and Slayton of the New York Giants, where Slayton kind of was recruiting Slay to join the New York Giants. And I didn't think much of it because Slay still had a year left on his contract. And basically the talk was that, somebody suggested that the Lions should bring him back for $8 million a year. And Slay said that, he would leave and, test free agency if that were the case. But he still had 1 year left on his deal. Now, this tells me a few things with the Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions are obviously picking ahead of the New York Giants. Before we even talk about the possibility of him coming to the Giants, the Lions have been rumored. Now, we'll see if they trade down or if they don't, and they could still go quarterback, as some of the reports have stated. I still think they're using that as leverage to potentially trade down, but they could go quarterback. But if they don't and they stay at 3, this makes me believe even stronger that the Detroit Lions will go with Jeff Okudah. So if the Lions do not trade down, I do not expect Okudah to get past them at 3. Now, of course, they could surprise us to take a quarterback. So I wanted to mention that first. But the big news that just came out was the Detroit Lions are, in fact, shopping Darius Slay. And I will get into the tweet in a second from NFL.com. But what does this mean for the New York Giants? Well, the New York Giants, of course, have a need in the secondary. They lose Janoris Jenkins. They have a bunch of young guys back there. And this would be a cost-effective move if the price was right. Now, I don't know what the trade would cost, but being that everybody knows that they want to get rid of this guy, and he's getting up there in age, he's going to be 29 or 30, he can make a ton of sense for the New York Giants. You're not committing a lot of years. He's only got 1 year left on his contract, and maybe you can work out an extension, maybe you can't. But regardless, could be a great fill-in at only $10 million a year for a 1 year commitment to be a cornerback for the New York Giants, a guy that's performed pretty well in the past for the Detroit Lions, and would bring some veteran leadership that, of course, the Giants got rid of when they got rid of Janoris Jenkins. Janoris Jenkins, of course, was making closer to 15. This guy makes 10. So we'll see if the New York Giants do, in fact, look into him. But I wanted to pull up the tweet for you guys and show you guys what I just saw off of Twitter. This is, like I said, this is officially being reported by NFL. This was a couple hours ago, but I was not alerted until a couple of minutes ago. The Lions have spoken to multiple teams about trading Darius Slay, ESPN reports. According to ESPN's Adam Schefter, Detroit has discussed trading cornerback Darius Slay with multiple teams. So there's the news, there's the breakdown, and I do think he makes sense because when you look at the New York Giants secondary, like I said, they are all very young. Love, Baker, everybody else. They need a veteran leader right there. Going into the season, as much as I like DeAndre Baker, I don't think you could honestly tell yourself that going into the year, you could trust him to be the number one corner. I think you bring in a guy like Slay could make sense. And when you look at his contract, he's not making much. 2020, not that it's pennies, but $10 million. And the key thing to me is, as I've expressed this entire offseason, it's only a 1 year commitment if you make this trade. Now, the price is obviously what matters here. But being that the Lions don't have much leverage and they're trying to shop this guy, I mean, you look last year, Jordan Howard, I just did a video. It's not going to come out yet because I'm going to have to back the scheduled video up. But Jordan Howard last year got nothing. They got nothing for Jordan Howard. Not, obviously running back, cornerback, 2 different positions. You're talking apples and oranges. But if you get him for the right price, maybe a 4th round pick, a 3rd, I don't know what it would cost. I'm not giving up a 1st or a 2nd. But for the right price, Darius Slay could make a lot of sense for the New York Giants, being that I do think it's a need to have a bigger veteran presence back there in the secondary. And, he's still a good player. And he'd fill a need for the New York Giants. And as Dave Gettleman and Mara have expressed, they want to use free agency, which, of course, in this instance, it would be a trade. But same thing. You're bringing an outside player to help build your football team to set themselves up for the draft. Well, if they were to bring in Slay, they wouldn't really have to address the cornerback position at the draft, at least in the early rounds, because you'd still have DeAndre Baker, you'd still have all the young players that they've brought in, Beal, and now you'd have Darius Slay, who would basically fill in for Janoris Jenkins, but at $5 million less per season, and only be that 1 year commitment. So I think it makes a lot of sense for the New York Giants to at least kick the tires, and there's already been, speculation. I didn't read too much into it. It's why I didn't do a video where Slayton was starting to pursue this guy and trying to get him to come to the New York Giants. They had a conversation on Twitter. Don't read too much into that. But regardless, the New York Giants, with their cap space, knowing that they have a need in the secondary and knowing that the Lions are shopping this guy, tells me two things. He could very well be a Giant, but even more importantly, Jeff Okudah could very well be a Detroit Lion if they do not trade down on draft night. As always, guys, if you liked what you watched, please subscribe, drop a comment, maybe give me a little thumbs up. Cheers.